Part 4, Chapter 17. For the first time in years, the guys felt a sense of freedom. Not in the same way they had the first time they were signed to a label. They had grown up. Their perspectives about life had changed. Their expectations and the way they were handling things had changed. Unlike when they were teens, they had jobs and responsibilities now. Vernon rented a van for the entire family to drive down to Washington, and Herbert would be riding along with them. It was 6 a.m. when Vernon and Jennifer packed the van. The girls, still sleepy, were carried to the van and secured in their car seats and boosters. Although Clyde had offered them the extra room, Vernon opted to take his family to a hotel, and Herbert would be staying with Clyde. Tommy would be meeting them at the studio. Afterwards, the guys would go out, celebrate their new beginnings, provided they were able to solidify a deal with Preston Records. Before hitting I-95, Vernon headed to North Philadelphia to pick up Herbert. The man got in the car smelling like marijuana. The stench hit Vernon immediately when his friend slid on the passenger seat. "Dag, Herbert, you been smoking?" I just had a hit last night, Vernon did not believe him. "Hit last night? You mean you had a hit this morning?" Herbert sniffed his spring jacket. "You can smell it?" "Yeah. You either leave that jacket home or I'm gonna Okay, listen. I'll take it off. The smell probably got trapped in my jacket." He left the jacket in his apartment. Vernon did not want his children enduring the smell of weed in the car. Besides, there were state troopers out there, and he had to go through at least 2 or 3 state lines before they entered D.C. They headed south, excitement growing every 50 miles, especially when they were south of Baltimore. That's when they decided to stop. He refueled the van and everyone went to the bathroom. Once his wife and children were seated inside the van, that's when Vernon decided to have a word with Herbert. "You know, Herbert, weed can't affect your singing vocals," Vernon said as he pumped the gasoline. "I'll be all right, man. I'll be all right." "No, I'm serious, Herbert. We are about to have a meeting with a serious label. They're not going to be tolerating stuff. You met his daughter. I can only imagine how the man who raised her thinks and acts." Herbert lightly touched his friend on the shoulder. "Lighten up, Vern." He stepped back into the van. Vern continued pumping gas. He shook his head at his friend, but he knew they would end up meeting this conversation at another intersection. Chapter 18. Vernon and Herbert headed to the recording studio once he got the family settled in their hotel room. He kissed his wife. "It's going to be fine, honey," she told him. She could tell he was nervous. "Thanks, babes. That means a lot to me." They pulled into the parking lot, and that parking lot was packed. It looked like everyone was either at work or recording. That question was answered when they stepped into the building after being buzzed in. Every seat in the lobby was taken. People were waiting to either be interviewed or they were auditioning. "This label is going to be hot in a couple of years, guys," Clyde commented once they were in the lobby. But Vernon countered, "Looks like they're already hot." The guys hugged Tommy once he arrived. "Man, it's so good to see you. What's up?" Vernon said. "Same here, man. I see you got the little goatee going on. That's what's going on, Tommy said. Vernon had a medium-sized afro. He had medium brown skin like Tommy. "So, guess who was answering the phones the last time we were here?" "Who?" "Angie Baskerville. She just finished recording her single." Tommy's eyes grew large, and he said, "You're kidding me, Vern. She lives down here?" "Yeah." Her being signed to the label gave Tommy some hope that they could be accepted. They told the girl at the front desk they had arrived. The young woman called Patrice on the phone. 5 minutes later, Patrice met them in the lobby. Clyde noted the last time they arrived, an armed guard had escorted them up. She headed over to them and shook their hands. She smiled and said, "Good to meet you, Tommy." Vernon noticed she seemed a little more at ease this time. "Come follow me, guys." They stepped onto one of the 3 elevators with 30 pairs of eyes watching them in the lobby, and they headed up to the 3rd floor, this time to a larger conference room. The guys would learn later that Norman's office was on the 3rd floor. When she opened the door, Norman was present. A man whom they learned later was named Johnny Hutchinson, a person from their marketing team, Norman's attorney, and an AR rep. Introductions went around the table. Norman Preston was a tall, cocoa brown-skinned man with a warm smile.
"Tommy, I hear you a hard man to catch up with,"
Norman said. Tommy smiled and said, "But you see, they caught me. They caught me, man."
"Oh, I see they did. But listen, did anybody bring an attorney with them?"
Norman asked as Patrice passed out contracts and gave them time to look it over first. "Or actually, no, we didn't. Should we have brought an attorney, Mr. Preston?" Vernon asked.
"You could have your attorney look over it before you sign it, but I will explain the terms of the contract as written."
"So we're proceeding with the meeting?" Clyde asked.
"Yes, and might I add, I am pleased to meet you guys."
The only sounds heard were papers shuffling as the guys flipped through the documents, reading the terms. Norman held an electronic gadget in his hands, looking at something on a small screen while the guys read their contracts. Vernon was nonplussed by the terms. He couldn't believe it. No record label could be this generous. Patrice stepped back into the room. She'd been gone for about 10 minutes. She finally said, "Are you guys ready? Are you ready, Dad?"
"Yes, I'm ready, darling,"
Norman said as he placed the electronic gadget gently on the cherrywood table. Vernon wondered if it was some kind of handheld game.
"First off, if you have written songs you would like to record at our studio, you will own those songs. However, the share you will pay to the company is 10% of sales if you do record with the company, from the entire group, not individuals. So that 10% covers all y'all."
The guys looked over the documents as Mr. Preston spoke. One thing Tommy noted mentally was that Fidel Record did not operate that way. Things sounded so far so good.
"Any songs you perform that is written by the writers of Preston Company belong to the company. However, you will receive 10% of the sales, which will be divided amongst the group."
Vance and Clyde exchanged glances.
"Let's move on to touring. This is the one most of our artists just love." "The company will finance your first 2 tours 100%, which means you are not required to pay back any expenses after those tours are over. Any subsequent tours to that, you will be required to pay back 70% of expenses out of your earnings."
Clyde wondered how in the world this company would make any money with all the incentives they offered to their artists. Norman went on to explain the rest of the terms of the contract, and the entire process took over an hour. He stated that Johnny Hutchinson will be their manager tentatively until they can hire another manager, and he will get 10% of their earnings.
"Do I have any questions?"
Clyde was the first to raise his hand.
"Clyde?"
Is there a catch to all of this? I mean, no disrespect, Mr. Preston, but, this is a very generous contract." Norman smiled and said,
"I'm not here to fleece my artists. I'm not a shark. You make money off your art. Everyone that works hard in this company gets to eat. I only have 2 pieces of advice."
"What is that?" Vernon asked.
"That when you do your first 2 tours, when you receive your first checks, manage your money wisely. The second thing is this: pay your taxes. Last thing you want is for the IRS to come with the handout
Well, Mr. Preston, we all have regular jobs. They take taxes out of our checks even before we see them. How will we go about doing that here? Or can we?
We have an HR department here and a team of accountants. You can fill out paperwork to be pre-tax based on federal government tax rate, or you can speak with one of the accountants about handling your taxes at the end of the year, or have them make an estimate about the amount of taxes they need to put aside, or you need to put aside, sorry. It's up to you guys how you want to work that out.
Well, I'd rather have my taxes taken out pre-tax.
Yeah, me too.
Tommy and Vernon said. Clyde asked,
One more question. Can we get back to you about the management? Do we have to agree to that right now? Well, if you want to wait on that part of it, you can. But if you find out later that you want Mr. Hutchinson for management, we can attach an amendment to your contract. If you get outside management, you will have to negotiate with them how much you wish to pay them. But remember, Mr. Hutchinson has lots of connections, and that's why I think it will suit you guys.
A round of yes went around the table as the guys nodded their heads, agreeing to hold off on deciding if Johnny should be their manager. After the meeting, Patrice led them down to the HR department on the first level. By then, most of the people in the lobby were gone. They all decided they would have taxes withheld to be on the safe side. Not all record labels offered this option. It's a good thing Mr. Preston has this provision, guys, Tommy said as they waited just outside the Human Resources office in the sitting area. The door opened and two guys stepped out. Vernon figured they were there for the same reason. I guess they're artists too, guys. Yeah, guess so. I'm waiting to run into Yolanda and her sisters. Ooh. Forget it, Herbert. They're still in their teens. Yolanda is grown. Come in, guys, said the woman who stepped outside of the interior office. They filled out their paperwork, and once that was done, they headed back to the parking lot. Everyone except Tommy was riding with Vernon since he had the van. They would hang out, have a couple of beers, and Vernon would leave Herbert at Clyde's house, and he would spend the rest of the weekend with his family until it was time to pick up Herbert and drive back to Pennsylvania. Tommy would be heading back to Virginia once they all parted ways. You know what, guys? I don't trust Johnny. I don't like the look in his eyes.
You too? I don't either, Tommy.
He looks like a snake. Tommy, maybe your mother wouldn't mind managing us. She's about to retire, right? My mom is 5 years from retirement. That's a long time. She had worked for the school system for 25 years, 2 years before Tommy was born. She had planned to stay 30 years and then throw in the towel. Maybe her 10% of our earnings would be more than what she's making, Herbert suggested. I seriously doubt that, but I'll talk to her.
So, what do y'all think about Norman?
He's cool. At first, I thought I was dreaming when he said he would fully finance our first 2 tours.
I heard he's wealthy, and that could be just a tax write-off for him. He can probably list it as charity or something.
Tell us what else you know about Mr. Preston, Clyde. I know one thing. His daughter is fine. Ooh! She ain't no teenager either.
Yeah, she's in her early 20s.
Yeah, got them pretty hazel eyes. Come on, Clyde, give us the goods on her.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought you were going all in for Yolanda.
Is it wrong for a man to use his options, Clyde? Huh?
Who said either one of them was your options, Herb?
Vernon said. Herbert waved a dismissive hand at his friend. Chapter 19. The guys signed a 4-album deal and decided to allow Johnny to be their tentative manager. As it stood, Johnny did have lots of connections, as Norman said, and he knew how to navigate his way through the industry. He even knew giants like Berry Gordy, Quincy Jones, and Stevie Wonder. Tommy's mother told her son she would give it some serious thought when he asked if she could manage them. But it was time for them to step back into the spotlight, and the most expeditious way to do it was to allow Johnny to be their guide for now. Vernon stated that if Norman trusted Johnny, maybe he wasn't all that bad. 2 months after the deal was signed, they headed to the studio to record their first single titled Give Me a Chance, a song written by Patrice Preston. What didn't this woman do? When they stepped off the elevator on the 3rd floor, who did they see other than 2 members of the lovely first delegation group? Yolanda and Tessa had rounded the corner and were on their way in the direction of the elevators. Herbert could hardly contain himself as he spotted the beauties passing them. The girls paid no attention to them as they passed each other. They stepped onto the elevator. The guys could hear parts of their conversation. They seemed to have been talking about heading over to visit their father.
Man, ooh, did you see that? Ooh, did y'all see that?
Herbert said, biting his left fist. Clyde had to admit they were more beautiful in person, and to actually get that kind of surprise right before recording was a bonus.
Y'all need to focus. Well, that's easy for you to say, Vern. That's because you already married. That's easy for you not to notice.
Oh, I definitely noticed, but I'm not going to lose my gall over it. They arrived at Studio 2 and knocked on the door. Patrice opened the door. There was a technician sitting behind the soundboard. Won't you step in, guys? Have you had time to rehearse this song?
Oh, yeah, we have.
The music began. Tommy led the opening verse, his tenor voice crooning out the lyrics.
When I look into your eyes, I see the pain you've been through. When I hold your hand, I feel reluctance from you. All I ask is that you give me a chance. All I ask is that you give me a chance. All I ask is that you give me a chance. All I ask is that you give me a chance.
Tommy's voice was clean and crisp, no hiccups, no cracking, and Patrice loved that. But when Herbert was supposed to come in for the second verse, he came in flat. Then she said, "Is there a problem, Herbert? Do you have a cold or something?" Patrice spoke through the microphone on the other side of the glass.
No, I'm not sick.
Then why do you sound so flat? That serious demeanor spoke volumes of her inability to tolerate nonsense. Vernon stole a glance at Herbert. He knew why. Herbert had smoked weed the night before, and Vernon told him to at least hold off on smoking until they record. They were scheduled to record 2 songs that day. They were working on an album, and Preston Records were very serious about staying on schedule. Patrice said, "Okay, try again. Take 2. When Herbert came in, he sounded worse than before. It was then decided that Vernon should take the second vocal while Clyde, the bass singer, took the last vocal. It was okay for Herbert to hide behind the chorus because Vernon and Clyde's voices drowned him out. Clyde noticed how annoyed Patrice was. Once they were done recording, it was late in the evening. They'd arrived at the studio before noon.
Told you about smoking weed. Told you about that. You can't mess this up for us, Herb. I only took 2 hits, Vern. Come on, get off my back.
Herbert was defensive, but Vernon knew it was BS. The guys had stayed at Clyde's house, and Vernon knew he was out there smoking with some girl he'd met in the area. "But how do y'all think we did?" Tommy asked as they drove out of the parking lot. There was now a gate at the entrance. No longer could anyone enter the lot without being let in.
Wonder when they put this fence and this gate around the place,
Vernon said as they drove onto Benning Road Northeast. "Did you just hear what I said, Vernon?"
Other than Herb's hiccup, we did awesome,
Clyde said. Herbert dismissed him and said,
"Can we stop and get something to eat, some shrimp or something, man? I'm hungry." "Not in this area."
Vernon said he wanted them to be back in Clyde's neighborhood where it seemed less busy and less activity. He was from a big city, but not this big city.
"But y'all know what?
What?
We are back!"
Yeah! And they all high-fived.
To hold